One game that is maybe the most famous back rank combination of all time. Do you want me to show you really quickly?
Yes, please.
It is now. There's a lot of history behind this game that's fascinating. This is a very funny thing about chess. Okay, a lot of the most famous games that have been played, a lot of the most beautiful games, were later found to be artificially constructed, or they were played in some coffee shop where, like, the person who was on the receiving end of the brilliancy was seeing that the brilliancy was possible, and he was deliberately kind of going for it, just to be like on the receiving end of history.
Man, that's some like cucking shit right
I
there.
know,
What the
and
fuck?
but then these games are passed. Oh, this game was played in the most serious tournament. Was played in the World Championship, and if the player who lost the game would have lost, then he would have lost his entire career. But in reality, they were cigar smoking like Frenchmen, like 4 whiskey shots in. Oh, you know, you have the brilliancy. I will allow you because I am gentleman. You know, to create some brilliant moves. So that was more the atmosphere of some of these games. In this game, actually, it's disputed whether this game was actually played or whether it was invented by the player playing white. Okay, but still, the fact remains it's a beautiful game. So this game allegedly was played in New Orleans in 1920 between a guy named Edwin Ziegler Adams, kind of a master level player, not very famous, and the player playing black actually on the receiving end of this brilliancy was famous. One of Mexico's first grandmasters, Carlos-Torre. Now already what makes this game suspicious is the fact that the way in which Torre lost the game would convince one, given the kind of player he was, that he was almost under the influence. I'm going to paste the position in here. Do you see the position change on your stream?
Yeah.
Awesome. So, in this position, Adams is playing white, Torre is playing black. What immediately jumps out at you about why I'm showing you this position?
Back rank, obviously, which is the
Both
possibility
back
I
ranks.
had.
Now, you see this rook on e8 and how much tension there is surrounding it?
Yep.
There's 2 defenders, 2 attackers. Now, what hypothetically kind of tactic could you come up with to ensure that rook takes e8 is checkmate? I mentioned to you a distraction tactic. What does that mean?
That's meaning keeping his attention elsewhere so he doesn't see that he's only a couple moves from checkmate. So in a position like this, maybe for white, you'd be looking to try and sack a piece somewhere so that way he'd have one less defender, right?
Bingo. So you want to distract this queen or potentially this rook from its defense over e8, right? At all costs. Yeah. Then this move's going to be checkmate. Okay, so here, Adams mounts a series of absolutely stunning distraction sacrifices. One after the other, he chases away black's queen, which desperately tries to remain hooked to the rook on e8. And it starts with the move queen to g4, which is nothing technically really to write home about. It's a nice move, but you see the point, right? If I take the queen, this is checkmate.
Yeah.
Now, very importantly, if black tries to take the rook on e2, is it possible now to take the queen, or does it get checkmated as well?
No, it doesn't get checkmated because the knight's guarding that.
Exactly. So that's a very important concept. So Torre says, no problem. I'm not going to fall for your little stupid tricks. I'm going queen to b5. Okay? Keeping contact with the rook on e8. Now, and also, I would point out, if you try to chase the queen away with a pawn, black... Oh, actually, yeah, black will take the rook with the queen. And after rook takes c2, black is a back rank checkmate of his own right. Which move in particular?
That's just going to c1.
Bingo. Rook c1 check, and then knight e1, and now?
And now you're taking the knight, and then
Exactly.
you're taking the rook.
No,
does
you're
it matter
taking
what
the
order?
knight, because it does matter. This is checkmate. It's an X-ray checkmate. If you take the rook first, then I
then
take
he
your
takes
rook,
the
and I'm
queen.
defending the knight. So you got to do it in that order. Okay?
Okay, that
So,
makes sense.
In this position, and this is the move I'll let you find, or try to find, Adams allegedly made, an absolutely freaking stunning move. It's another distraction sacrifice, but I'll give you a hint. It sacrifices the queen both to the rook and to the queen. It's an incredible, incredible move.
Okay, I guess. Couldn't he? No, because the queen's okay. I was gonna say, because couldn't he just take that rook on c8?
Right, almost, but the problem is I
Yeah.
escape with the rook and simultaneously
Yeah.
take the queen. So it's a distraction sacrifice. You're trying to get the queen away from its contact with the rook. There is actually only one way to do that, and it uses white
C4,
queen.
right?
Bingo. Nice. If rook takes c4, what happens?
Oh, then you're getting checkmated.
Exactly, and if queen takes c4, you're also getting checkmated. Look at this freaking filthy move. So, and if rook takes c2, then you can choose between taking the queen or taking this rook and delivering checkmate. So, Torre, once again, is like, no problem, I'm bringing the queen back to d7, and the moves can be repeated here with queen g4, queen b5. But, again, Adams finds yet another absolutely stunning distraction sacrifice. You're on a roll, so find it again. The same exact idea. Another stunning move.
Does he just go to c7?
Yes! Wow, queen c7. Okay. Queen b5. Now he goes... One moment. Now he goes a4. Because, again, if you take the pawn with the same idea, then queen takes e2 is very unpleasant. And we've already discussed this, right? Yeah. This is checkmate. So by going a4, he's put the queen's body in front of the rook. So queen takes e2, what does white simply do now?
Well, now you can obviously defend against this, so you could just take the rook or you could take the queen.
Well, you can't take... Taking the rook is not as effective. Taking the queen wins the queen. Because either piece that black takes leads to back rank checkmate. If you take the rook first, black will take your rook. And then I'll take your queen, and then I'll be a rook up. Does that kind of make sense? I know I went very fast through this.
Yeah, I guess that's another thing I struggle with is knowing the right order. Because to me, when I look at this, it seemed even. But yeah, now
but you see now, like, and that's something we'll work on through the lens of tactics. So after queen takes a4, Adams pushes up his rook to e4. Same idea. Attacking the queen. Queen to b5. And now the final move of the combination. Yet another distraction sacrifice. After which the queen finally runs out of air. Can you tell me this move?
I was gonna say c5, but that doesn't work.
Okay, close. Just look at it's the same theme. Just look at all of the potential squares and try to distract the queen. And again, don't tunnel vision to like only this file. Look at the entire board, every square. Make sure that the queen keeps this square in protection, and like this square is also protected. So how do you make a queen move to defend both of those squares?
c6?
You're very close. Now, queen c6 is a brilliant move. The problem is I can take with my queen.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the queen keeps contact with the rook on e8.
But, so when you take with the queen, taking with the pawn, doesn't that gives you the same desired effect, right?
No, I take the rook, and then you take my rook, and I take the pawn, and life goes on.
Right. Yep. Okay.
It's a move it's maybe you're resistant to because I still think you're thinking in only one direction, and it's a move to the left.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that immediately threw it off because I looked at d6 taking that pawn, but that
doesn't do anything.
Yeah,
it is taking a pawn, but which pawn do you take?
It's taking on f7, right?
Whoa.
No?
Thank you for your queen.
Oh, fuck.
Thank you very much. It is taking a pawn, but you're getting off task here. You have to distract this fucking queen from the e8 square.
Yeah. Okay. So the only other pawn that can do that though is, well, b7 attacks the queen. It also defends that, so it's got to be b7, right?
It is. The final move of the game is queen b7. Sorry to be so pestery about you finding this move, but again, I just want to like hammer this point home. Back rank tactics are like after hanging pieces, probably the second most important. But let's review this from the start before I grab my foot. So he starts with queen g4, queen c4, queen c7, a4, distracting the queen in order to bring the rook up to e4. Queen has to move to b5, and he slowly kind of cuts the air off further and further and further until the queen is fully deprived of squares. And that is this Adam-Torre game that's one of the most famous applications of back rank tactics. And this game, nobody knows whether it was actually played. New Orleans, nobody knows what tournament was being held at the time, why this Mexican player was in New Orleans. So there's a lot of mystery about this game as well. It's kind of interesting.
So did they resign at this point?
He resigned. Torre resigned at this point. All themes, unchecked forks, all puzzles.
Yep.
And the rating range, let's increase the rating range a little bit. Let's do 0 to 1200. You see where it says rating range up at the top? So go back.
Shit.
Like back to the home screen
Back
of the training.
Oh, I see.
And
Yeah.
click on learning and then click 1000 maybe. Or we could do the rated feature, like whatever you prefer. Yeah, but this is what I want, like 0 to 1200.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. So now just go through everything normally, or is there something special you want me doing here?
Actually, scratch that. Let's go back to 800. My bad. 800.
You immediately looked at this and said, "Yep, Charlie's too dumb for this
it's
one."
more that you will solve it, but it's less of a priority. There will be some endgame puzzles if we do 1200. But you can solve this one.
All right. Yeah. Let me give her a whirl here.
No, I think you will solve this one, actually. But this is more of an endgame puzzle, that's why. Not because it's like
Okay.
that hard, necessarily. So what's going on
Yeah.
here?
Well, right now we're looking to get a passed pawn, right?
Mm-hmm.
So by pushing b3, that gives him the pass pawn, which I don't want to do.
And he
so
promotes.
the only. What was that?
Yeah, if you play b3, he takes it, he promotes his pawn. So if you go a4 here,
Yeah.
actually what you need to do is you need to identify the fact that he's got the weak pawns, and you need to advance your king to take them.
Even before playing a4.
Even before playing e4, you need to try to slam that king over to d4 so that it wins the pawn on c4.
Okay, so then you just immediately start going.
Exactly. Bingo. And now, yep, and you simply take the pawn. Well, we can continue. You feel like that's doable? I feel like that was like exactly a 1200 rated puzzle.
Okay, that makes sense. That wasn't too bad. It's just, I guess I don't know how crucial order is, because I was thinking a4 first, which then
Right,
makes
so
his
what that would have
king
allowed
move,
him
but
to
I see
do-
why that's detrimental.
Right, that would have allowed him to bring his king into the center and shoulder out your king. Now, this puzzle is quite easy, so walk me through the solution.
Okay, so immediate things. He's now pushed up a pawn, looking to develop bishop out to the side, feeding counter the bishop. As for hanging pieces, he doesn't have any. He has nothing developed. So I guess what we're looking for in this puzzle is a way of finishing this off. So putting in check here, and then just right here.
Yep, exactly. Very nice. Checkmate. Yep. Easy. Identical. Well, he did have a hanging pawn there, technically. So you scared me when you said that there was nothing hanging, but...
I guess when I say hanging, I'm only really looking
Pieces.
at minor pieces.
I
which
got
is
you.
a bad
That's okay.
habit.
Yeah, understood. Okay, this one's really hard, Charlie. I think you should spend a couple hours on this one.
This is a tough one, huh? That looked pretty tough.
I think a 2600 puzzle, by some sort of glitch, made its way to your set.
Yeah. It felt like it. It really did. Oh yeah, this is just another one, huh?
Okay, wow. But remember, these would have caused you some trouble even earlier. So now you feel like they're very easy and you're solving them instantly. But
Yeah.
even just a little while ago, you would have kind of labored over them.
Yeah, and I guess that just comes with having played so many now at this point. Another thing that I think I struggle with, I guess with puzzles, is I never really know exactly what they're looking for, whether it's a
Right.
checkmate or just winning pieces.
Well, that's a good thing, right? Because during the game, you also don't know exactly what you're looking for.
Yeah.
But in this position, for example, do you think it's going to be checkmate that you're looking for? Is it realistic to assume that?
No,
No,
I don't
okay.
think there's any checkmate possibility here. So I'm looking to win a knight is what I'm thinking. I can't
How?
just take that c4 knight because he takes with his knight. So I need to prep that, right? So I'm thinking...
And if you could name the move that you're about to play, it'll help me because of the delay.
Right, so I'm thinking f6 pawn to attack this knight, make him get
Ex-
off, and then I can take that knight.
Exactly. You notice the relationship between the knights. You chase off the base knight, and you win
Yep.
either that knight or the other knight. Very nice. Okay, they've decided to give up this knight. This is like an 1100 rated problem. Okay. Ooh. Okay, I love this one. I love this one.
So the thing I immediately notice is playing as white. White right now has his knight eyeing down a rook, which is typically worth to take, but I don't know if that's what the lesson here is, to just take the better piece. I think it's probably deeper, right?
Let's consult your intuition. And what that means is look at his king. Is his king in any kind of danger? If the answer is yes, then you should spend at least a little bit of time looking for something bigger and greater than taking the rook.
It's just taking this pawn on h6 because my
This is
rook's
called
here.
the Arabian mate.
Yeah, and then it's just pushing rook down here to
Exactly.
g8
With checkmate. By the way, before you switch to the next problem, I don't know if you already have, but if you would have taken his rook at the start, if you can use that slider to rewind back to the start, you see it's on the bottom left of your screen. There's a little slider that you could use to get back to the start of the problem. Yep.
Oh, I was just using my arrow keys.
Oh yeah, that also works. So if you take the rook, okay, how do you evaluate this position? What material situation do we have on the board if you take his rook and he takes your knight?
What do you? Well, I mean, I'm up a rook, so I'm.
Are you
plus
sure?
2.
You're up a rook. Does black have anything in return for a rook?
Okay, I take his rook. He takes with queen. Queen's threatening.
Just count the
I guess there's
material.
Oh Jesus! Yeah, I guess I was playing as though I was like really far up. Okay.
So you see, it's 2 pieces for a rook.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the reality is sometimes that's a form of tunnel vision where you see a hanging piece, let's say a knight for rook, and you don't consider the initial material balance. Remember, black is up a piece here. So taking a rook is big shit. You know, black has a queen, a bishop, and a knight for the rook. He's totally fine. So the king's safety is the real X factor. If the king is unsafe, then you have to look for checkmate. If your material is equal and there's a hanging queen, chances are you want to take that hanging queen.
Okay, that
You know
makes
what I'm
sense.
saying?
Yeah.
All right, good. Let's continue. Ooh. Okay, this one is one where you have to draw the game. Thank you, Nightstore, for the sub.
Yeah, I think this is. Oh, well, what I was thinking, and now I see why that doesn't work, is by pushing that pawn he'd take with bishop, I'd take his pawn, but that's clearly not it.
That's almost it. The problem is if you push your pawn up, he takes with the king. So you have to stop him from taking with the king. You have exactly the right idea, and then you come back for the other pawn and you trade it.
Yeah, so this is when I have to just bring my king out first, so it's just g2, and then I'm pushing...
And he's actually in Zugzwang. Like, remember, Zugzwang is a position where every move he makes harms his position.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, what you took, but you didn't take the bishop.
I immediately recognized that and just try again.
No problem. It's just sort of an automatic reaction. I get that.
Yeah.
But that's another endgame problem which you solved. Good. Okay. Another endgame problem. This is another one where you have to induce Zugzwang. We've talked about this very briefly, but this is a good time to kind of deepen our knowledge of what Zugzwang means.
Okay, so in this position here, I obviously can't touch anything from A to D. Everything's just stopped on that position. I also can't maneuver my way over there to do anything. So obviously the action comes from F to H. So the natural push here is pawn to G4.
So pawn to G4, and thanks JW, you basically creates a mass trade. Now, do you remember what I don't remember if I taught you this term. The king on F4 and the king on F6. Do you remember? That's opposition. Now, why is opposition so great? Opposition is great because if you force black's king to move, if he moves to the right, then you move to the left and penetrate. If he moves to the left, you move to the right and penetrate. So you need to make an empty waiting move in order to pass the turn to your opponent. And G4 does not accomplish that because it gives him a chance to take the pawns. Exactly.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that.
This is endgame stuff. So great.
So then I come in here and then,
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, a couple more. Ooh. This is a good problem on... Thank you, Drainlord, for the 500 bits. For the fat 500 bits, I should say. What is going on in this position?
He's defending himself against the back rank, he's got the queen defending the rook, the bishop attacking my queen, which is also defending the rook in an X-ray here.
Exactly, good observation. But you failed to identify one other X-ray. Maybe you're about to, not to jump the gun here.
For black side, the X-ray is the pawn, coming through my pawn here, but I don't think that's it.
So notice the rook on d1. It's x-raying the rook on e1. That's all I'm going to say, but I want you to actually find the move. Thanks, Easton.
Oh, wait, I think I see it. It's just pushing queen first. He takes with rook, then I take with rook, right?
Bingo. Queen f1 check,
Yeah.
exactly. And noticing that the rook is actually defending the f1 square. Like, consider the rook on e1 almost like a ghost.
Yeah.
But 1100 rated problem. Very nice. Okay. Let's do 2 or 3 more, and then maybe we'll jump back in for a few last games.
Sounds good.
But you can see the improvement in your tactics. I know you're always, going to be unsatisfied with where you are, which is totally natural, but I just want to remind you of how much more complicated these tactics are than what you used to solve and struggle with.
Yeah, true.
Okay, this is a tough one. This is a 2-move combination.
So I think I see it. It's pushing queen first. He goes to h2. Then I'm pushing rook to e1. If he takes, I take queen. If he doesn't, then I'm checkmating at h1.
Dude, I think
right?
you're actually a GM. Like, I am legitimately impressed right now. I have a smile on my face, and I'm not faking it. Damn, you found it immediately. Queen b1, rook e1.
Yeah.
Unstoppable mate or giving up the queen?
That's right.
Nice. I'm pumped. Let's go. Let's do 2 more.
Okay.
Okay, I mean, you can decide on anyone. I'm not your fucking mama, but I suggest that we do 2 more. Okay, this one's another kind of very tricky one because you haven't really seen this theme before, but let's see if you can find it.
The first thing I thought of was to go to c6 to hopefully look to cut off the promotion, and then that also lets me push my pawn. I imagine what black would do is go to b4 and do the same thing.
Exactly, and this would be a draw because both sides would stop the opposing pawns from promoting. So you need some sort of a tactic here. And to find it, you need to pay attention to the other side of the board. The contact that the king is making with the rook on g4.
Mm-hmm.
What can you tell me? How can you use that contact in some way?
Well, it cuts off a retreat. He can't come down a rank. He can't go to the rank 4 here, but I have no way of putting him in check to force him up.
You say that, but there is. Do you mean the rook or the king?
I was talking about king.
Yeah, well, there actually is. You're thinking exactly in the right way. It's just a tactic. You have to be ready to, like I said, make some concessions. You can't win the rook straight away, but you can orchestrate a trade of rooks here. It is a very unusual and very important tactical motif. The reason you're not seeing it is because you're too attached to keeping the rook on b6 alive. But take the rook on g4 at all costs here.
The only way I see to do that is by sacking the rook. Is that just it going right there to g6? He takes, I take.
But why? Because then your pawn will promote faster than his pawn. And more specifically, your king will be able to stop his pawn. His king will not be able to stop yours.
So how can you recognize when your pawn's going to be first? Is it just because of the position on the board? Since I'm on 5, he's on 5.
Yep, calculation.
Makes his journey a little further.
The reality is he could have pushed his pawn instead of trying to bring his king over, and then you would have need to actually take a move in order to stop the pawn with your king. Thank you, Charlotte Chazena, for the raid. So there are methods of determining. I never use them. I literally brute force calculate my way. I go here, he goes there. I go here, he goes there. Who promotes first? There's an entire category of tactics that are known sometimes as pawn races, which involve the calculation of multiple promotions, what happens when both sides make a queen. There's a lot of cool stuff that can happen there.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I guess that's just an area I need to work on. I don't see it too often.
Exactly, and everything in due time. Let's do 1 more.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. This is actually a good problem. Because it speaks to a question that you had asked earlier.
So I don't think this puzzle is looking for a checkmate. There's no position here I can deliver a check. What I have here, though, is this queen that's now open for my rook to take.
Exactly. You just take the queen, you're up a full rook. And then you checkmate him like how you did against Ludwig by going to d7 and then to h7. You see that maneuver?
Yeah,
Similar
I see that.
motif with a rook and a bishop like that.
Mm-hmm.
But good. So significant improvement in the tactics. There's a couple of different themes that we'll need to deepen our work on. In particular, one thing that we can do maybe for the next lesson, I can prepare some positions on the topic of pawns and pieces that are already defended, but you can still kind of win them. It's what I said earlier. You know what I mean? Like that fork you had on d4, which you shied away from because the pawn on c2 there was defended. But in reality, it's attacked more than it's defended. So these types of tactics, I sort of want to continue working with you on. But overall, the improvement is absolutely vast. How do you feel solving these? Do you feel more confident?
Yeah, absolutely.
He is playing the Caro-Kann defense. Well, he's not playing it very well.
So is this a potential progression of the Caro-Kann? And if it is, should I just play the d4 right now?
d4. This is called the Gurganidze defense. I don't think he okay, no, he's shied away from that too. Now, again, this is a great example of where you can just stick to principles, and he can screw around as much as he wants. But if you stick to the development principles, nothing is going to get to you.
This is some wild play right here.
I know,
Daniel.
he's
I've
freaking
never seen
reinventing
this kind
the
of
wheel
thing.
here. So develop your pieces now. The bishop on f1. What's its most active square? It's your favorite
For
square.
f1. My favorite mate square?
Your favorite. Sorry, I missed what you said. Did you say f4?
What is your question? I didn't hear your question.
The light squared bishop. Where should you develop it? Sorry.
Yeah, so I was just gonna bring it over there to c4.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to delay you there.
No, you're all good, bro.
Yeah, and I'm anticipating he might play bishop g4. Yup, and
Yep.
please tell me you remember what to do now.
Well, I can't do legals trap, so
No.
this is when I need to look.
This is a semi-legal trap. DBX with 5 fat gifted subs. Thank you, man.
Fuck, what was it?
We just had this. In this exact position. You had this move, you draw the king out, and then you check him.
Okay, so I don't remember the progression. Do I do knight first to prep it? No, I
But that
draw
wonders
out
the
first.
queen. Exactly. You have to
Okay.
think about it this way. The knight is pinned, so the only way you can move the knight is if it's check. How do you
Right.
orchestrate the check? You take the pawn. Bingo.
Yeah, so I knew what you wanted. I didn't remember what
Halt!
order things went in.
Think. I'm not going to tell you anything. I want you to find the move.
Well, the first thing I notice is e6 for my knight. And that attacks the bishop. It attacks his queen.
This is an area we need to work on because you have something a lot better than anything you're looking for right now. Look at his king. You have checkmate, my friend. Thank you for the bits, HKBK. Don't limit yourself to the 6th rank. Look at the whole board. Look at all of the possibilities. Remember, you've taken out his bishop, so the light squares are weak.
Oh, Jesus Christ, yeah. Oh,
What
he
happens?
moved his... Yep, Jesus, yeah. Yeah. Right.
Good. So, how do you find something like this? How would I find something like this? He's not developed any of his pieces, and whenever that's the case, you have to start looking for these moves.
Yeah.
You're always on the lookout for stuff like checkmate.
Yep, I didn't even consider dropping all the way to c8. I was still just looking for a knight check or a fork.
Right, the
Yep.
limited
I
sort
guess
of.
that's
You're
another thing I need to
just
look.
looking at that e6 square. Sorry to cut you off.
Oh, all good, bro. No.
Good, but still, that was short. How about one more?
Yeah, it's fine. That guy probably quit playing chess after that.
Yeah,
that
that's it.
was a
El Master.
wacky opening, though.
El Master is going to try to become an El Master in something else other than chess.
Yeah. Have you ever seen? Oh, I'm sure you've seen an opening like that. Is that a real open, or is it just like?
So his first two moves constitute an opening called the Gurganidze defense, named after a Georgian chess grandmaster, but he didn't play it correctly. Like I don't think he knew he was stumbling on this. You know,
Yeah,
But
that's fair. Does every single opening have like a name tied to it, or is there just an opening so bad that nobody uses it?
I think every first move has a name, but some are like the move Knight A3 on move 1 is called the sodium attack because Na is the symbol for sodium, so that's like a Smurf opening. Some don't have names on like move 2. Most openings on move 1 have names, but that doesn't mean the person who invented them is smart. Like sometimes the person who invented them is crazy. There is a very funny story I will tell you right after this game, before we might wrap up, about opening names, and it's like something that maybe nobody in my chat even knows, even the people who are experienced. Okay, so good development so far. Continue to develop your pieces.
Yeah, I don't need to chase off this bishop right now, right? It's not really doing anything,
matter,
so I just
yeah.
want to keep going normal.
Absolutely. You could, but it's not pinning the if he plays bishop g5, that knight is closer to your king. So in that regard, I would play h6.
Okay. So that's something I need to look for is proximity.
Yeah, proximity to the king. The closer stuff happens around your king, the more attentive you need to be to this kind of stuff. Yeah. And he's played the Rai Lopez, he's played the Spanish defense, which is at a Grandmaster level, this move bishop to b5 that he played is the most popular move. It's the move that I play myself with white, but he doesn't really know how to handle it is the thing.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. It's the most interesting thing I've ever seen.
I disagree. You're a very interesting man, Daniel.
Thank you.
Very.
Likewise, Charlie. Appreciate the compliment, even after all the times I shit on you. Okay, so he's taken, and you see now, he's taken unprovoked. So the move a6, you actually save time by not playing it.
Yeah. Opens up the B file.
You know that too. And I like that you don't care that you quote-unquote ruined your pawn structure, because it just doesn't matter. That's just one doubled pawn. Nobody cares about it. You have the 2 bishops also.
Yeah, that was something I was super worried about like early on, but I guess over the time we've spent playing these, I've just realized it's not that big of an issue. So this position is one I had a question on. Is this one where I trade the bishops here, or do I just want to drop it back? And
drop it back. Because you don't want to open up the F file for him. Remember, you do that yourself. Mm-hmm. You don't want to open up the F file. Instead, if you drop it back to B6, then and if he takes it, you can open up the A file for your rook.
Okay, so then that's what we're looking for. Gotcha.
Thanks, chemistry.
So then, if he does take this bishop, I want to take with the A pawn instead of the C pawn.
Either would be fine. Both have their pros and cons, but I would take with the A pawn. But he. What now?
What was that?
What are you thinking about now?
So I still haven't developed most of my pieces. I still haven't castled. I still have my bishop not doing anything. I was going to bring bishop to the most active square at g4. Maybe he pushes a pawn.
If he pushes a pawn, then you remember he weakens his position. You can keep the pin, etc., etc. He probably will play the move h3. So that would be my guess.
And then in that position, I don't remember what we discussed. Do I just drop the bishop back, holding the pin?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. And then if he pushes the pawn again, that'd just be a huge mistake.
Yeah, exactly, because then you can sacrifice that knight in a way that we talked about many times. You remember that, right?
You're talking about my knight, right?
Yeah, well, he just plays kind of an empty move, rook e1, which allows you to keep developing.
Yeah, so now I want to castle, so I'm castling short.
Mm-hmm. But I ordered a dish with a 10 out of 10 level of spice. So if I die, this has been fun.
Yeah, man, it's always fun.
Yeah, it's a tough position for your opponent to figure out what to do in. Because you've got the pin going, you've got good coordination with your pieces, and a lot of people lose their cool here and play g4. So if he plays g4, what do you do in that position?
That's when I'm throwing knight on it, right? That's when I'm going knight to g4.
Creating that permanent pin via the bishop to the queen, and then he no longer has a support for his knight.
Yeah.
Yeah, so tough position for white to kind of handle him. So it's hard to get rid of that pin, actually. Because he's given away his light squared bishop. Yeah. He might lose on time at this rate. You actually have more time than your opponent. I can't believe it.
Yeah, well, this has just been like a super standard game so far. So all of these moves are moves that I've seen like a million times now.
Too modest. Well, basically, okay, now he pins you.
Yeah, in this position, do I chase that off with h6?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Because now, if you play g5, then he won't be able to take it with the knight. Because his knight is pinned. So your pin is better than his. Well, my pin is better than your pin.
Okay, I get you. He's probably just gonna take knight, so then I'm probably just gonna pre-move, take back with queen.
Good, very good. So while he's taking a million years to think, I can tell that story. There's an opening in chess called the Damiano's defense. Actually named in honor, quote unquote. Well, okay, let's focus on the game.
Okay, so he's just trying to hold this pin, pushing mine to g5. That's better now, right? Because he can't take with the knight.
Exactly, and you're basically excommunicating his bishop.
Yeah. To be fair, though, I don't think someone at this level would have even thought to take that with the knight, even if there was.
Right, exactly. I see what you're saying. Okay.
Right.
Now you have this pawn on g5. Can you continue the... Well, what comes to mind now? This is a great position to practice finding moves in somewhat undefined positions.
First thing...
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, the first thing I thought was just immediately pushing up one more time. If he takes with pawn, that opens up h for me a little bit. Then I can look to try and get a queen back there, maybe. Try and find a mate.
Okay,
but
I love it. I like that move. That would be my second... this would be my second candidate move. So you can go ahead and do that.
What was the first candidate? I'll play this one, but what was the one you were thinking of?
The first was to open up that f file. And in order to open up the f file, you need to play f5. What do you need to do in order to play f5?
I gotta move my knight.
Bingo. But you can actually do both. You can play g4, and after hg, you can take with a knight so that you then prepare f5. So you can get the best of both worlds.
That's fair. That makes sense. The drawback I saw of this move, though, it frees the pin.
I'm glad you mentioned that, and that's why you should take on g4 with the knight. Because if he took with the bishop, he would bring his bishop back to h4, as you said.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he has a decision to make, obviously. So anyway, this Damiano's defense was named after a 16th century chess author called Damiano, Italian. And it's a terrible, terrible move that's been refuted. And everybody assumes that who is this Damiano idiot who developed this terrible move? Like, he basically lost a lot of players' games. Well, who would recommend something like that, right? Well, what very few people know is that Damiano actually refuted that line in his book. He actually told the refutation, but sadly, people started calling it the Damiano's defense anyway. But the reality is he was the one who said it was terrible. So that's one of the many injustices that have been made in the chess world.
So what made it so bad? What was the actual
I'll show
move?
you after the game, maybe.
Okay, yeah, I'd like to take a peek at that.
Yeah, and this is something you should actually know. Slicker actually played it against you. But I didn't show you the refutation then because it's just way too long.
I get you. All right, so now the pin is broken here.
But what was the second reason you took on g4 with the knight? The plan that I proposed, what was it?
We were pushing up to f5.
Yeah.
We want to do that now?
Open up that file.
Okay.
Again, don't fall into the trap of thinking that all attacks take place over the course of like 2 moves. You have to spend a lot of time sometimes accumulating pieces.
That makes sense, yeah. I think that's another thing I need to work on as well.
And here, once you bring your rook in, then you can bring your queen, and you can stack the queen and the rook on the f file. Things are going to start imploding very soon for white.
Holding tension is another area I struggle with. When the board stays stagnant for a long time with a lot of pieces just defending each other and maybe like loosely threaten something, I have a hard time knowing what move to play next, so I'll end up playing
Right.
like an empty one.
That makes sense. And sometimes you do have to play and an empty move. Sometimes you kind of want to bide your time. Okay, so he goes 92. What now?
I still want to free up this F file, so that doesn't change anything. I'm
Sure.
just taking.
Yeah. And then bring more of your pieces in. And basically what you want to do is you want to decide on the best ideal square for the queen first. Where does the queen belong so it's harmoniously placed in relationship with the rook?
That's just going right up there to F6.
Absolutely. Get it to F6, and then you can slide it over to G6 potentially. And then you can slowly bring in both of your rooks. This attack is going to be freaking epic. Once it actually uncoils, he's going to be in huge trouble. Thanks for the 100 bits, Elpetter. But yeah, this is just horrendous for white. Okay.
So I did have a question on this.
Yeah.
My bishop over here on B6 is looking right at that F2 pawn. Taking, well, I guess that doesn't work. He just takes back with bishop, and then I'm not really winning anything there. I'll just take with king. Never mind.
Yeah, but you should notice it in case he ever moves his bishop, or in case you ever might sacrifice something for his bishop on G3, such that after that you can then take on F2. So that's something you should keep in the back of your head. But for now, you need to keep accumulating pieces on the king side. What comes to mind?
So now, what I thought of was setting up Alekhine's gun. So I'd just bring rook up and then push the other rook on F8.
Excellent. I love that you remember the Alekhine's gun too. That's exactly what I would do. Yep. Notice how methodically you're preparing this attack, patiently bringing every single piece in, and then it's all going to be worth it in the end. Yeah, Mano. Game analysis will still happen, probably, maybe even later today, but we'll see. Definitely this week. Okay. He's trying to reinforce the pawn too. He's defending well. It's just not enough.
Okay. So this doesn't change anything. I still want F8 here for Alekhine's gun.
You want that freaking Alekhine's gun. You mentioned that name. Don't disappoint me. You promised me an Alekhine's gun. Now I want to see it.
Oh, it's fucking coming. I mean, don't you worry about that.
Okay,
That's my specialty.
Okay. Technically, the Alekhine's gun I think is the rooks first and then the queen, but I think we'll forgive.
It's fair enough. It kind of looks like a gun barrel, like it, just shot something out with the queen, like a little crown there, exploding shit. You'd have to really change your perspective to a 4-year-old to see that.
Yeah, well, that's what I was attempting to do. Okay, well, he's attacking your queen. Where should the queen now park itself so that it, again, it's harmoniously placed in relationship with the rooks?
Just bringing him up to F4.
Whoa! Are you sure about that? Tunnel vision.
Ooh, no,
You're not immune to the knights?
Right.
But the good thing about the queen is they can act in concert. The rooks are already doing the job of controlling the F file. You don't actually really need the queen on the F file anymore. Where would it be better suited to be? How can it X-ray the king?
Yeah, I just want to put it on G, so I'd want G6.
Exactly. And now you're actually ready to start sacrificing. You are already threatening a crushing sacrifice that basically breaks through. Do you see what it might be? And that's actually another benefit of putting the queen on G6.
Well, the benefit, so when I see positions like this, the first thing I notice is how that pawn's not going to be able to take if I take something on F3.
Bingo! That's exactly what you want to do.
Okay, so I want to push in there with the rook.
But then you have a discovered check that wins literally everything in the position.
So I guess this is back to something we talked about earlier, the order of things. I don't recognize what order these things should happen in.
So
I can see them. I just don't know
what are the possible orders? What are you thinking of doing? First you can move the knight away and then take on F3, or you can take on F3 and move the knight away. The question is, right, which is better?
Yeah.
Well, normally discovered checks can be very devastating. So if you move the knight away, you give him more flexibility. If you take on F3, you normally want to choose the more forcing move. Okay? Now you could take on F2 with a knight. That also wins the game on the spot. In this case, it doesn't really matter. But taking on F3 is a little bit more precise. Do you see what I'm saying?
Okay, so Kind of. I guess I just don't recognize why it's better. So right now, the optimal move is just taking that f3 knight
Yeah,
with my
we'll
rook.
work on this. We'll talk about this game, and then we'll work on this in future sessions. Let me write this down. I will construct a set of problems on this topic, and help you with this. Okay, order of operations, basically. Order of operations. Yeah. But do you see that this move wins? Do you see how effective it is? Is it more a question of, or is it more a question of which is more effective? Well, you think both are strong.
It's always what's more effective for me because
Yeah.
I'm never quite sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. We'll tackle this for sure.
Okay, so now it's going in with the knight for this discover check. I'm taking queen next. Yep.
Yep. Sorry for the chewing. Exactly. And he's got 50 seconds, but that's not even his biggest problem. He's got to move his king. And the funny thing is if he moves, and remember you called this. You mentioned that bishop on b6 making contact with the f2 pawn. So now you get to reap the rewards of that.
Okay, so in this position,
So he tries to win your queen, and technically he does, but you can take a million things in return for the queen. So just take the free stuff here.
okay, so the free stuff, well, I guess free is subjective. So it's rook on e1 with
Yes,
knight. Yeah.
perfect. And then he takes your queen, and you take his other rook. And at the end of the day, you're just going to be up a full rook.
Okay.
Okay, he doesn't even do that. He gives you the other rook for free, too.
Okay.
What?
Now I just take it with the bishop.
Exactly. And that's it. Yeah. And now I want to see you finish him off on your own.
He could have taken with the knight there, right? He
But now I think he's tilted. He's way too tilted to see moves like that.
Okay. All right. So then the next move here, I want to look to set up a checkmate. So to me, it looks like moving rook up here to f3 to take this pawn.
And at this point, you can already, I mean, you're good enough where you can follow your gut instinct in these positions, and it's normally going to be good enough.
Yeah. So in here, yeah, I can. It's not mate though. Coming up to g4 with queen, that doesn't mate.
You don't have mate in one though, so again, don't fall into this trap of trying to find the fastest mate and then losing on time. Just like do stuff and get his king cornered, and then you'll find the mate.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I'll just play it out.
Just, you know, pin his bishop on g3, whatever you want to do to get to him.
All right. So then here,
You're up a queen and a rook. Anything wins here.
but pushing this rook check, he
That
takes
works.
with bishop.
Rook f2 check, and then you take the knight, and then it's mate. You see how easy you found the right move, but you're hesitating. So what we also will do is a speed technique round, where I'll give you completely winning positions against me, and you're gonna have to win them in a certain period of time.
Okay.
That's
yeah,
gonna be a good
idea.
exercise. Okay. Now you would have wanted to be careful if he didn't have any pawns left, that would have been stalemate. But since he does have pawns left, it's over.
Oh yeah. Oh shit. That's another thing I need to be aware of.
DoorDash is ready in like 10 minutes. I ordered it a couple days ago one time. I shit you not. The restaurant's like 4 minutes from where I live. It was ready in like 12 minutes. I've never seen anything like that.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely why though, man. You're basically walking distance from it.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I like about this, is a lot of places nearby. Also, they know it's a grandmaster, you know, Charlie, so I know you wouldn't understand or you wouldn't know. But when
you
they
just
know
open
who
your
they're
window and shout at them.
when they know who they're serving, you know, the delivery occurs kind of fast.
Yeah, I imagine. They're going for the old scholars made of delivering to GM Daniel.
Exactly.